Good evening. Welcome to the March 5th, 2018.
Here.
And move on to the salute to the flag. And Commissioner Kraske, I'll ask that you lead us. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraske. So the next item under administrative business is the approval of our order of agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the order of agenda? Commissioner Clifford.
I move to approve the order of agenda.
Okay, and Commissioner Gordon?
Second.
Oh, great. So we've got a motion, a second. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, unanimously approved the order of agenda. Thank you. The next matter that we've got is approval of minutes. And we've got minutes here from our meeting of February 5th, 2018, and our meeting of February 20th, 2018. Is there somebody who wants to make a motion to approve these collectively, or do you feel like we need to take them one at a time?
I would be willing to make a motion collectively.
Okay, so I've got a motion then from Commissioner Clifford to approve the minutes of both those meetings, February 5th and February 20th. Commissioner Stejnik has seconded that. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from both those meetings. Can we go ahead and vote? Excellent, thank you. That's unanimous approval of the minutes of February 5th and February 20th, 2018, those meetings. So next item on the agenda is designation of a liaison to the City Council meeting for the 674 Corona appeal. Maybe we get a little info on this then.
Sure. My apologies that the date didn't show up. The tentative hearing date for that appeal is April 9th.
April 9th. That's different from the date of our...
It's the same date as the tentative date for the annual report as well.
Well, I'll be there anyway. I'm happy to volunteer. So
Thank you, Chair.
all right. Excellent. Fantastic. Well, that takes care of that.
Who's the liaison? Sorry.
I volunteer.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Since I'll have every intention of being at the meeting. So then we'll move to the oral communications portion of the agenda. And this is the portion of the agenda that's available to the public to address the Planning Commission on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission that is not on the agenda. The time allowed for any speaker will be 3 minutes. I don't have any speaker cards, of course. If somebody's interested in addressing the Commission, that's fine too, if you just go ahead and approach the podium. I don't see anybody getting up, so I suppose that means that there's no oral communication this evening. So we'll move on then to consent items, of which we have none, which takes us then to our consideration items. The first one is the Planning Commission Annual Report for calendar year 2017. This isn't requiring any CEQA action. In particular, the recommended action is to discuss the annual report and the presentation to the City Council. I'll go ahead and turn it over to staff.
Thank you. So the City Council requires that each commission and committee provide an annual report regarding their work for the previous calendar year. And so the attachment to the staff report provides a summary of the Planning Commission's work, as well as some statistical information about some of the permits coming through the Planning Department. And so the form of this report is the same as previous years. It details the membership of the commission, how many applications you heard this year, which was 13, and you also had quite a few more legislative matters that you made recommendations on this year, including some very substantive issues, including cannabis regulations, business regulations, as well as accessory dwelling unit regulations. And you also heard several fairly some controversial and some just very substantive matters regarding a rent increase application for a condo conversion project, as well as the ongoing Fassler condo project. So the report summarizes some of the other significant items the Commission heard in 2017, gives a summary of building permits issued, and a summary of the attendance record, which I have heard comments that because of a previous issue that the city council dealt with, this attendance record currently focuses on number of absences instead of the other way around, and the number of meetings attended. So if it's the will of the commission, we can certainly format that a different way if you'd like. But partially that's done because of the request that was made for the
From the city council?
From the city council.
Okay,
Yes.
I wouldn't be inclined to ask for reformatting if that's where the city council wants to
I'm
see
happy
it.
with the way it is.
So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to hear any feedback from the commission.
Commissioner Stedjink.
I do see that contradiction in the attendance record there. It's actually not an attendance record, it's an absence record, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's the only item under the heading attendance record?
Yeah, well, I see the point. I mean, it really is to highlight attendance, and it's just done by way of showing, you know, the percent of absences that we're talking about. I don't know, I think it's probably clearer to call it the, you know, attendance record notwithstanding, but your point's a fair one. It might be useful to have a line or two just to make clear that although it's right there on top, so.
I think it's pretty clear.
It also appears there's partial years calculated for certain commissioners, but not other commissioner years.
It was trying to be fair based on when the commissioner was appointed. So the percentage for those with an asterisk, the percentage is the percentage of meetings that you were actually
A member for.
actually could attend because of your appointment time. So it would be unfair to calculate an entire year if you were appointed, say, in August.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? I appreciate the report. Can you, just in terms of reminding us as to how this actually goes in front of the city council, is there any particular, you know, from a selfish perspective, is there anything particular I need to do, or if so, what is it?
Yes, you need to give the report.
Okay.
So staff will, this will be attached to the city council staff report. We will turn this information into a PowerPoint presentation.
excellent.
We will give that to you ahead of time, make any adjustments since you're the presenter.
Yes.
And then have that all set and ready for you to go on the evening of the presentation.
Perfect. So we'll have a chance to collaborate on the deck
Yes.
before it's presented. All right,
Yes.
excellent. Thanks. Anything else? Commissioner Clifford?
Yeah, just in going over this, I had one question, and that's, we did grant the permits for the new Highway 1 pedestrian overcross in Sharp Park. Do you have an update of when they're actually going to start that?
I do know that they're in getting encroachment permits from the engineering division, so I believe they're within the next month or two going to begin.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for the report. It's concise and easy to follow, so
Yeah.
thank you very much. So that will take us then to new public hearings, and the new public hearing we have for tonight is use permit UP 08817, excuse me, for enclosure of a covered entry porch in the front yard to add approximately 94 square feet to an existing two-story 2,154 square foot residence, which expands an existing nonconformity in the required 15-foot front setback. The project also proposes landscaping and other additions on the first and second floors to the north side, and a first floor addition to the rear. The entitlements are not required for the latter change that I just referenced. The recommended CEQA action is a Class 1 and Class 4 categorical exemption pursuant to 15301 and 15304 of the CEQA guidelines. And the recommended action is to approve as conditioned, and I guess we'll have a staff report.
Just before Renu begins, I just wanted to reintroduce my colleague here, Renu. I have a difficult time pronouncing her last name, I apologize. And she is our contract planner with M Group, and so she's been here before, but not, I think, with a different commission, so I wanted to reintroduce her to you all.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. So as you know, this project relates to a use permit for the enclosure of a covered entry porch in the front yard of a 2,154 square foot residence at 119 Berendos Avenue. The site is 8,523 square feet in area. It is irregularly shaped and has approximately 116 feet of frontage along Berendos Avenue. It's located outside of the local coastal zone. Currently, it has this single-family, two-story residence, which is 2,154 square feet, along with an attached 889 square feet two-car garage, and a 663 square feet accessory dwelling unit, which is above the garage on the second story. So the enclosure, the porch enclosure would add approximately 94 square feet to the existing residence, and that would expand an existing nonconformity in the required 15-foot front setback. The porch is currently 2 feet 7 inches away from the front property line at the closest point of the distance between the two. And the residence encroaches about 7 feet in the front yard. The second floor extends above the porch to cover it, and that is also 2 feet 7 inches from the property line at its closest point. As the commissioner mentioned, that the applicant has also proposed some other changes, which include an addition to the rear on the first floor and confirming additions on the first and the second floor to the north, and landscaping. They have also proposed minor realignment of the existing driveway and inclusion of an additional driveway which goes to the one-car uncovered parking space for the ADU. The expansion of nonconformity requires a use permit per section 9-4.3004C2 of the PMC, and the applicant has thus requested a use permit for this enclosure. For the use permit, there are 3 findings that must be made for its grant, and these findings, as they relate to this addition, are that it is not detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood or to the general welfare of the city. The second finding is that it is consistent with applicable provisions of the general plan and the applicable laws. And where applicable, it is consistent with the city's adopted guidelines. Staff analyzed the proposal, and we found that the addition, the enclosure meets all of the findings as outlined for the approval of for the grant of a use permit. And that's because that the addition is not going to change the building's use, the encroachment is not very readily evident from the street, and then there is, because it doesn't extend beyond the second story, there is landscaping in front which will soften that addition. It is located in the low-density residential general plan designation and R1 zoning, and meets both the standards of the zoning except for this encroachment which requires the use permit and is consistent with the general plan designation too. It meets the design guidelines as well, and I have elaborated that in the staff report. So if there are any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them. But this concludes the staff report. I just wanted to also point out that we received a comment from a neighbor, which is a positive comment about the project, and that they support it.
Excellent. Oh, thank you, Ms. Agarwal. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Agarwal before we, Commissioner Clifford?
I only had one question, and that is, my understanding from looking at the plans is that the existing front porch is also 2 feet 7 inches from the setback. Is that?
That is correct.
So they're just enclosing it. They're not increasing their bite out of the setback.
No, they're not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clifford. Commissioner Stedjink.
This letter from the public was so glowing as to make me wonder, do we ever make any attempt to determine these folks actually exist versus merely hold an email account?
I can verify that person exists. I know her.
That wasn't my question. That wasn't my question.
I acknowledged the email and they responded, but who knows who's doing that?
Well, I did check, and that person exists, and it's a lovely little home. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay. So then we'll move on then to hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative. We ordinarily always afford the applicant an opportunity to speak if the applicant chooses to.
So my name is Ellis Shoykett with PISA Architecture, and I'm the architect, and I want to thank you for having us here and giving us the opportunity to present the project. I don't think I should spend a lot of time going through.
It sounds like they're having some difficulty hearing you. Is the mic on?
Oh, do you have a mute button up there?
Did I hit a button of some sort? Nope. Maybe it's my fault. It almost certainly is. Try again.
Okay, is this okay?
Just, I can hear you okay. Go ahead.
All right, fine. So I'll keep my remarks brief, but I think as the staff planner outlined, the project is being heard for a use permit because of an encroachment that previously existed, but the previously existing encroachment was a covered porch, and we're planning on enclosing it. So the nomenclature that it's actually an increase in the nonconformity is debatable. It was ruled that because it's square footage of living area that's in that area, whereas before it wasn't living area, but the actual outline of the house and the space was already, was already delineated by the perimeter of the building. And also, we're asking for the site development permit because we have gone over the threshold by a couple hundred square feet, but the treatments of the architecture and everything like that have been very carefully designed to sort of enhance the architecture of the home and to be an improvement to the neighborhood. And we're available for any questions. I did bring a couple, copies of the renderings that we did showing the after of the home, which is slightly different from the existing, but I think better, and obviously I'm prejudiced, but but I think better, and I think that it's not a noticeable thing from the neighborhood, except perhaps it would be noticeable that there'd be a little bit more depth of landscaping in the front of the house and better landscaping across the remainder of the property, because we are proposing re-landscaping the entire property.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Shoshat, is that right?
Shoykett.
Shoykett, thank you. I don't see any at this point. Excellent, thank you. I don't have any speaker cards for this matter. If there's anybody in the public who wants to address this matter, let us know now. Don't see anybody, so we'll go ahead and close that portion of our consideration of the item and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in favor of this application. I think it's tasteful. I think Commissioner Clifford raised a good point that the encroachment isn't really being extended any further than it already is. It's just being enclosed. It's probably going to provide some nicer living space for the applicant, and I'm all in favor of more landscaping, and that's what's going to result from this plan. So I'm in favor of approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Stedjink.
I visited the site and I reviewed the documents. I tend to agree that it's a minor extension covering that. I'd be interested to know how much extra the applicant paid to come have a hearing on that issue versus merely having it passed internally.
We can follow up with that information.
Does the applicant's architect have an answer to that?
Well, I don't have the exact number at my fingertips, but I believe there was a deposit in excess of $6,000 for the use permit plus the site development. And as I said before, it was debatable, at least in my mind, whether the use permit should be required or not. But the ruling was that it is, and here we are. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Clifford.
Well, first I want to say that it's a very tasteful change to the house. It enhances it, and it enhances the neighborhood, in my opinion, and I will be voting for it.
Great. Commissioner Gordon.
I'm ready to make a motion if there's
Any other
anybody
comments? Go ahead.
I move that the Planning Commission find the project is exempt from SEQA, approve use permit UP-088-17 by adopting the resolution included as attachment B to the staff report, including conditions of approval in Exhibit A of the resolution, and incorporate all maps and testimony into the record by reference.
Commissioner Stedjink.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Why don't we go ahead and vote? So that's unanimously approved. All right. That then will move us on to communications, and I will ask if there are any commission communications. Commissioner Stedjink.
I'm curious how the progress on the marijuana applications are going.
So we are in the midst of Phase 2. That's when applicants are required to submit the security plans, detailed security plans to the police department. There were at least one or two that did not get approved out of Phase 1. And at least one of them is being appealed, and that'll be on an upcoming city council agenda. The police department is the lead on that, so I'm not sure exactly which agenda, but it should be very soon when the city council will hear that.
So it's been culled from 32 to 29, might we say?
Thereabouts, yeah.
Do we have any idea how many ADUs have been added since 2 meetings ago?
Since 2 weeks ago?
2 meetings ago?
2 meetings ago?
Yeah.
I don't know.
This year, less than 10?
I don't even want to guess.
Okay.
I'll have to ask my staff that
That'd be great.
do that
Maybe.
day in, day out.
Appreciate that. One more question there. You know, a couple months ago, we talked about a homeowner's bill of rights and something that would expedite single-family home remodels that are extremely simple. This project here today, although had an age that was from before we were a city, seems like that's the kind of thing that could be somehow expedited. Is there any mechanism internally for you guys there at planning to expedite that without bringing it to a planning meeting?
We would need to adjust some code language. So if we have direction to do that, there's plenty of area where we can expedite some of these permits, and the code language would need to be adjusted.
In a manner that would save both planning, the city, and the applicant money?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I actually had a question. Our vice chair has of course resigned from the planning commission. And when is it that we elect officers in the ordinary course?
That's actually what I was going to give you an update on. So the reorganization occurs in April, and actually at the end of March, tentatively, the clerk is going to call for interviews for new commissioners. And so I was going to suggest that we wait for that and then just do a complete reorganization. So you will be without a vice chair for a couple meetings, but I don't know if that's
I can deal with the stress of it.
Yeah.
I was just sort of just wanted but it's because it sounds like something is soon in the offing to adjust that. Okay, well, that's fine. Why don't we go ahead and proceed that way?
I had a question as well. If you could provide an update on the general plan, kind of update, if you
Sure.
will.
So actually, we
while.
provided an update to the city council during their goal setting on Saturday. And essentially, there is no update. There's been other priorities that have come up ahead of the general plan process. And so there hasn't been any work on it done on it. We are in this steps of taking the goal setting through the budget process. So there'll be a 2-step process. So we have heard feedback and gotten the council's direction on Saturday. Now staff, the executive team is going to go back and look at resources, budget, and come back with another go at goal setting and get council's concurrence on what our priorities are for the next fiscal year.
Thank you. Well, that's, I'm sorry, Commissioner Stedjink.
I'm going to revisit that. Approximately 3 minutes ago, when we asked if there's anything we could do to save both the city and the applicant's money, you said there was a couple regulations that you would need to be have control over there. If we were looking to make that happen today, what would be the next steps for that?
So we would need to go through the zoning ordinance and with a clear direction of the goal, and find out ways where we could, where there's ordinances that create a lot of work that perhaps don't have a lot of significant outcome at the end for the public and for the applicant. And we would need to come back for some guidance from you and to the city council as to what the direction is to amend the code.
So planning would vote on sending it to city council, and then city council would change the law. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Would that typically require a study session?
It depends on the controversy or how, significant the change would be.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gordon.
It's a great conversation to have. Just to add some institutional history, I think a couple years ago, before you were on, I think George White was there. When he came on, there was a move to take some agenda items away from us and make them more over-the-counter, more administrative, to streamline stuff, because we would see stuff like this come through and we'd be like, like the points you were making. And then I think there was a general impression from City Council that the pendulum swung too far in terms of removing stuff that might, where in hindsight it would have made sense for us to be deliberating on something because there was some sort of controversial nuggets that should have been deliberated on. And so the pendulum swung a little bit too far, then it got corrected, and now perhaps it's going the other way. Anyway, I just want to let you guys know that this is something that we've gone back and forth on for quite some time.
Even since my time on the commission, we've had some conversations about it, and sort of the notion of having a public forum for discussing things that might have a bit of, controversy, but things that people may want to come and comment on. And it certainly is it's certainly worthy of a conversation, that's for sure. Because I think there probably are some things. I remember there were some some permit approval renewals that would come. And I, often wondered why it was we needed to consider those things in a meeting. But, a lot of that is based on history and what have you. So, Commissioner Stedging.
Yeah, based on what Commissioner Niblin just said, would extending permit expiration from 1 year to a year and a half reduce your workload?
So we did address that through conditions of approval. And so as long as there's been no substantive changes surrounding the approval, so that the Planning Commission, through their conditions of approval, have said staff can extend it for another year, but not more than the 2 years that's allowed under the municipal code. So that is something that we were able to streamline through conditions of approval.
I'd just like to say for the record, I fully understand why this one came here tonight. It had enough tiny little things that if you hadn't seen the house and put them all together, you're like, yeah, that could go awry. There's, it's old, it's county from before we were a city and stuff, but there do seem to be some things that unopposed single-family home remodels under 50% square footage increase. It seems like some of these things there are cities in the United States where permits are issued in 30 days.
I mean, there's a lot of different, it all depends on what the city would like to do.
Right.
There's a lot of different methods. There's methods where the city puts out a notice, and if you don't hear anything, it can be approved.
It's deemed approved.
So there's much discussion that can be had on this.
Under what circumstances are we pulling in an outside vendor, such as we have tonight?
Under what circumstances?
Yeah, are we pulling in an outside vendor as like Renew?
So we extended her company's contract, M Group, recently through the city council. And that was because we needed to process permits faster and we needed more people.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good. So that was a robust conversation. Staff communications?
That was it.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and ask if there's a motion to adjourn then. Commissioner Clifford.
I move that we adjourn.
Commissioner Stedging.
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Let's go ahead and vote. Unanimously approved. Thank you.
Oh, we should have adjourned in memory of.
Oh, no. He's still alive. It's just,
That would be
bad taste.